That night, it carved itself into my memory like a brand on my soul. I had meant to pass by quietly, thinking Ethan had long since fallen asleep. But the moment my hand touched his door and it creaked open, everything changed. I froze, as though time itself had stopped. What I saw, I will never forget. Our relationship had always been distant, just polite exchanges over dinner or in the hallway. Yet in that instant, the air between us shifted. His eyes met mine, holding a glimmer that felt both dangerous and magnetic. My heart pounded so loudly I thought it might echo through the room. I should have stepped back, closed the door, and walked away. But instead, I found myself unable to move. That was the moment the first crack appeared in the wall I had so carefully built around my life. Before we go any further, I want to pause and thank all of you who have been following Love and Tears. Your comments, your thoughts, your support, they are the heartbeat that keeps stories like this alive. And I truly want to know, as you hear what happened next, what would you have done in my place? Share your thoughts below, because this is not just my story, it's one we are about to experience together. My name is Serena. I was 36 then, living in a quiet suburb of Wisconsin. On the outside, I had everything: a comfortable home, a hardworking husband, and a stepson about to graduate from college. My husband, Richard, traveled often for work, leaving me alone with the silence of most nights. I filled the emptiness with small routines, tending my garden, rearranging furniture, painting. But nothing filled the space inside me. Ethan was 19. Tall, athletic, his hair the color of summer wheat. There was a freedom in him, an untamed spark his father often tried to control. Until that night, we were little more than polite strangers sharing the same roof. But as rain tapped softly against the windows and vanilla-scented candles warmed the air, the boundaries of our lives began to shift. Richard had called earlier to say his flight was delayed. He wouldn't be home until the next day. I decided to go to bed early, but passing by Ethan's room, a sound stopped me in my tracks. A low, almost pained sigh. My heart clenched with worry. Was he hurt? Without thinking, I pushed the door open, and what I saw on the other side would change everything. His eyes found me instantly and held me there. He didn't pause, didn't hide, didn't even pretend to be startled. That piercing blue gaze, it wasn't just looking at me. It was daring me, inviting me into something I didn't fully understand, but couldn't walk away from. "Come here," he murmured, his voice low and velvet, the kind of tone that made my pulse stutter and my breath turn shallow. My mind screamed to leave, yet my body moved forward as though it had already decided for me. I stopped at the edge of his bed, my hands trembling inches from him. "Let me help you," I heard myself whisper, but it didn't even sound like me. It was the voice of someone braver, or perhaps more reckless than I had ever been. In that moment, I crossed a threshold I could never uncross. And the most dangerous part, I didn't feel guilt. I felt something else entirely, a hunger, so fierce it left no space for anything else. When it was over, his gaze was different, darker, possessive. That he said, his tone almost a warning, was only the beginning. I knew then with a kind of cold clarity There would be no undoing what had just happened. We had stepped into a place where rules didn't exist, and there would be consequences. And here's where I turn to you, dear listeners. What do you think truly drove Serena to take that step? Was it loneliness, the need to feel wanted? Or was there something far more dangerous lurking beneath? Tell me in the comments. I'm reading every word. And if you haven't yet subscribed to Love and Tears, because from here on this story only gets messier. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the curtains as if mocking me, wrapping the room in a golden glow I didn't deserve. But inside, I felt nothing but cold. The sheets were tangled around my legs, the air heavy with memories I couldn't shake. I tried to tell myself it had been some strange dream, a trick of the mind. But the truth was there, in every remembered touch, every whispered word. Real, unshakable. I stayed in bed longer than usual, hoping the silence meant Ethan had left the house. Avoiding him was the only thing I knew how to do. Under the shower's scalding water, I scrubbed my skin until it stung. But the memory clung stubbornly, like a mark burned into me from the inside out. There was something in the way Ethan had breathed my name. A tenderness laced with danger, like a secret only the two of us knew. His hands in my hair had been both commanding and pleading, as if he needed me as much as I, God help me, needed him. I hated myself for it. Tears stung at the corners of my eyes, hot and humiliating, but I blinked them away. I wasn't going to fall apart, not now. I slipped into a loose sweater and jeans, my hair twisted up in a messy, distracted bun. If I kept myself busy breakfast chores, anything maybe by the time Richard came home, life would look normal again. At least, that's what I told myself. But the moment I stepped into the kitchen, my breath caught. He was there, bare-chested, leaning casually against the counter, as if nothing had changed. The morning light kissed his skin, highlighting every line of muscle, the careless dampness of his hair falling across his forehead. But there was nothing boyish in his eyes. That gaze was deliberate measuring, and it crawled over my skin like a slow burn. "Morning, Serena," he said, his tone laced with amusement that felt too knowing. I mumbled a greeting, keeping my back to him, rummaging through the fridge, like I'd lost something important. My hand shook as I pulled out the eggs. "You look different today," he remarked, playful, but with a warmth that unsettled me. "Eat your breakfast," I snapped, slamming the fridge door a little too hard. He chuckled low, the sound curling down my spine in a way I didn't want to admit. "Feisty?" he murmured, as if testing the word on his tongue. I focused on cracking the eggs into the pan, praying he'd leave. But instead, I felt him move closer. The air changed. He was right behind me, his presence so strong I could almost feel my pulse responding to his. "You don't need to pretend with me, Serena," he said softly. "I know you enjoyed it. Every second." The spatula slipped from my hand, clattering onto the counter. "Stop," I said, my voice shaking. "It was a mistake." I turned to face him, ready to end this, but his eyes, they weren't apologetic. They were hungry. "You want it again, don't you?" His fingers grazed my hip, and my breath caught. I wanted to scream no, but my body betrayed me, leaning toward him, aching for more. No, I whispered, but it was a lie I could barely sell to myself. He smiled, then slow certain. You belong to me now. And before I could push him away, his lips claimed mine, demanding, consuming, stealing every breath. The kiss was fire and gravity pulling me in until the rest of the world vanished. My hands found their way into his damp hair, drawing him closer. He lifted me effortlessly onto the counter, his body pressing between my legs, his touch exploring with the same fierce certainty that had ruined me the night before. My gasp was swallowed by his mouth, my fingers gripping his bare shoulders, as though I could anchor myself against the storm he was pulling me into. Have you ever believed that you were holding a perfect happiness until someone came in and turned everything upside down? Sophie once thought her life was settled, a warm family, a model husband, and peaceful days passing by like a gentle song. But then fate sent her a lost note named Daniel. He did not appear loudly, just accidental glances, a few passing words. But like drops of water seeping into dry soil, slowly but deeply, Sophie began to feel her heart beating strangely, feelings that she thought had been dormant for a long time. Pauses for a moment, voice soft as if confessing. Do you understand that feeling? When someone makes you want to get closer, but also afraid of yourself. Every encounter with Daniel, no matter how short, leaves Sophie with an emotional mark that is difficult to erase. She found herself smiling more, waiting for random messages, and then lying to herself to stay longer in those moments. But the deeper Sophie went, the more clearly she felt the dangerous rope wrapping around her. One more step, and there would be no turning back. And when she realized it, it was too late. The heart that belonged to one person was now split in two. There are relationships that, from the very beginning, carry the seeds of tragedy. Even though we know the outcome, we still rush into it like moths to a flame. Ethan looked at me, a faint smile, both mocking and understanding. You're addicted to this. Addicted to the danger, the feeling of being forbidden. You bring color to my bland world. I hated him to the core, but I hated myself even more. Because I knew he was right. I tried to push him away from my life, calling him reckless, childish. But just one cold sentence from him, reminding me of the moment between us this morning, made me lose control and slap him hard. Ethan just touched his cheek lightly, then smiled a dangerous, cold smile. You'll come back to me, Serena. Resistance is futile. He walked away, leaving me shivering against the cold wall. I ran upstairs, locked the door, and collapsed on the bathroom floor. In the misty mirror, the woman looking at me was no longer me. Just an empty, unfamiliar shadow, burdened with guilt. In the days that followed, the house seemed to be covered in a thick, suffocating layer of air. Ethan still tried to touch me when Richard wasn't looking, whispering dangerous words in my ear. Each time my body betrayed itself, responded to him, and then sank back into self-contempt. Richard gradually realized the invisible distance I had created. He tried to talk to reconnect, but I coldly pushed him away again and again. Until that fateful night, Richard went out drinking with his colleagues. I curled up in a blanket on the sofa, trying to find some peace. Ethan walked in silent, his eyes burning. In just a few steps, he pulled the blanket away, hugged me tightly, and a passionate kiss swept me into a familiar whirlwind. Until the sound of the door opening, Richard stood there. His face was a mixture of confusion, pain, and heartbreaking truth. I couldn't say a word. He turned and walked away, leaving the door slamming as if to end our marriage. Ethan looked at me, his voice as soft as a breath. "This was meant to be. You just wouldn't accept it." I screamed, telling him to disappear. And he left. Richard never came back. Everything was lost because of me. This is a story of broken boundaries and lives ruined forever. Soft background music, slow voice. What do you think? Could Serena have turned to a different path? Or was this ending inevitable from the moment she took the first wrong step? Share your thoughts in the comments section. If this story touches, you don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to join us in the deepest corners of love and desire.